The morning light filtering through my childhood bedroom window felt wrong. Everything felt wrong. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding as I stared at the faded pink wallpaper I hadn't seen in 3 years. The calendar on my nightstand read March 15th, 2021. Exactly 2 years before I died.
I'm Katherine Wells, and I've lived this life before. 2 years ago, or should I say, 2 years from now, I would be dead. Alone, broken, and forgotten, while my sister Isabella lived happily with my stolen husband. But somehow, impossibly, I was back in my old room at our family home, 23 years old again, with all my memories intact. The memories hit me like physical blows. Daniel Morrison, the man I'd loved since college, the man who'd proposed to me on New Year's Eve with tears in his eyes, saying I was his everything. Isabella, my sweet younger sister who'd always looked up to me, who'd begged me to introduce her to my friends, to let her be part of my world. The betrayal had started so innocently. Isabella asking to borrow my car to drive Daniel to the airport when I was sick with the flu. Isabella volunteering to help plan our wedding when I got overwhelmed with work. Isabella listening sympathetically when Daniel and I had our stupid fights about wedding venues and guest lists. I remembered the exact moment everything changed. It was 6 months before our planned wedding. I'd come home early from a business trip to surprise Daniel, only to find Isabella leaving his apartment at dawn, her hair messy, wearing yesterday's clothes. When I confronted them, they both cried. They hadn't meant for it to happen. They'd tried to fight their feelings. They were so sorry. Daniel called off our engagement that same day. 3 weeks later, he proposed to Isabella. 6 months after that, I watched from the back of the church as she walked down the aisle in my dream dress, toward my dream man living my dream life. But the real nightmare was just beginning. I'd tried to be the bigger person. I'd smiled at family dinners, congratulated them on their happiness, even helped Isabella pick out decorations for the home she was building with Daniel. I thought if I just kept being good, being selfless, somehow the universe would reward me. Instead, I slowly disappeared. My friends became their friends. My favorite restaurants became places I couldn't go because they might be there. My entire life became a map of memories I had to avoid. The final blow came at their first anniversary party. I'd shown up, dressed in black like I was attending a funeral, which, in a way, I was. My own. Daniel didn't even acknowledge me. Isabella hugged me with that pitying smile she'd perfected, the one that said, "Poor Katherine, still not over it." That night I went home and swallowed every sleeping pill in my medicine cabinet. Now, staring at my reflection in the mirror across the room, I saw the Katherine from before the betrayal. Bright-eyed, confident, successful. The Katherine who'd just gotten promoted to senior marketing director at Morrison & Associates, Daniel's family company, where I'd been working for 2 years. The Katherine who was planning her engagement party for next month. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from Daniel. "Good morning, beautiful. Can't wait to see you tonight. Isabella's cooking dinner for us. She's so excited to celebrate your promotion." I stared at the message, remembering that dinner. It would be the first time Isabella would be alone with Daniel for more than a few minutes. The night she'd supposedly realize her feelings for him. The beginning of the end. But I remembered something else, too. Something that hadn't seemed important in my first life, but now felt significant. At that same dinner, Isabella had mentioned that her roommate was moving out, and she was worried about affording rent. She'd been working as a freelance photographer, barely making ends meet. What I didn't know then, what I only learned by accident years later, was that Isabella had been dating someone she'd never mentioned to the family, someone very wealthy who'd been supporting her for months. Alexander Blackwood, billionaire real estate mogul, the same man who would later become Isabella's husband after her marriage to Daniel inevitably fell apart due to their financial struggles. In my first life, I'd been too devastated by Daniel's betrayal to pay attention to Isabella's subsequent romantic life. But now, with the clarity of hindsight, I remembered seeing Alexander at family events years later, the way he'd looked at Isabella with such intensity, the way she'd seemed almost afraid of him sometimes, and I remembered something else. The way Alexander had looked at me during those brief encounters. Not with pity like everyone else, but with something that looked almost like regret. Like he'd wanted to say something but couldn't. I dismissed it then as my imagination, but now... My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from an unknown number. "Katherine, this is Alexander Blackwood. We need to talk. Your life is in danger." The phone slipped from my hands, clattering to the floor. Alexander Blackwood. How did he even have my number? And more importantly, how did he know I needed to be warned? Unless this wasn't the first time someone had been reborn. I picked up the phone with trembling fingers and typed back, "How do you know?" The response came immediately. "Because I've been trying to save you for longer than you know. Meet me at Riverside Cafe at 2 p.m. Come alone. Don't tell anyone, especially not Isabella or Daniel." My heart was racing. In my first life, I'd never met Alexander properly until years later at Isabella's wedding to him. But apparently, he'd been watching me all along, trying to save me. From what? From whom? I looked back at Daniel's text about dinner with Isabella tonight, the dinner that would change everything, the first step in Isabella's plan to steal my life. But now I knew something she didn't know I knew. I had 2 years of memories she couldn't account for. I knew every move she was going to make, every lie she was going to tell, every manipulation she was going to use, and apparently I had an ally she didn't know about. I stood up from the bed, my reflection showing a new determination I'd never had in my first life. This time, I wouldn't be the victim. This time, I would be the one making the moves. I typed back to Alexander, "I'll be there." Then I scrolled to Isabella's number and typed, "Hey sis, just wanted to say I love you, and I'm so grateful for everything you do for me. Tonight's going to be perfect." The lie tasted bitter, but it was necessary. Let her think she still had the element of surprise. Let her think I was still the naive, trusting sister she could manipulate. She had no idea that this time I was the one setting the trap. As I got dressed, choosing my outfit carefully, professional but not threatening, confident but not suspicious, I couldn't help but smile. Isabella had always been the actress in the family, but she'd never been the only one who could play a part. This time, the performance would be mine, and by the final curtain, everyone would know exactly who the real villain was. Riverside Cafe buzzed with the usual afternoon crowd, but I spotted Alexander Blackwood immediately. He sat in the corner booth, his dark hair perfectly styled, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. But it was his eyes that caught me. Sharp, intelligent, and filled with an urgency that made my stomach clench. He stood as I approached, and I was struck by how tall he was. In my previous life's brief encounters, I'd been too broken to really notice him. Now, seeing him up close, I understood why Isabella had been drawn to his wealth and power. "Katherine," his voice was deep, controlled. "Thank you for coming." I slid into the booth across from him, studying his face. "How do you know about me? About what happened?" Alexander leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Because I've been living in a loop for the past 5 years. Every time I try to save you, something goes wrong. You die, I reset, and I have to watch it all happen again. The world seemed to tilt. You mean you've been reliving the same timeline? Yes. This is my 7th attempt." His jaw tightened. "The first time, I didn't know you existed until it was too late. Isabella was already married to Daniel and you were gone. Then I woke up 5 years earlier with all my memories intact." My hands trembled as I reached for my water glass. "Why? Why are you stuck in this loop?" "Because someone I cared about was taken from me and the universe apparently decided I needed to fix a greater injustice before I could rest." His eyes softened slightly. "My sister died trying to expose a conspiracy. She was an investigative journalist who got too close to the truth about certain powerful families, including yours." The pieces started clicking together in my mind. My family? What does my family have to do with anything? Alexander pulled out a tablet, sliding it across the table. The screen showed financial documents, bank transfers, medical records. "Your father isn't just a successful businessman, Katherine. He's been running illegal medical trials through his pharmaceutical company. Isabella has been helping him cover it up for years. I stared at the documents, my world crumbling again. That's impossible. Isabella's just a photographer. Isabella is a lot of things, but innocent isn't one of them. Alexander's voice was grim. She's been documenting the victims, creating false identities for the test subjects, and disposing of evidence. The photography business is just a cover. But Daniel found out about the trials 6 months into your engagement. Isabella offered him a choice: expose the truth and destroy both families, or break up with you and keep quiet. She sweetened the deal by offering herself as a consolation prize and promising him a share of the profits. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd ever imagined. So he never loved her? He loved money more than either of you. Alexander's expression darkened. But here's what you didn't know in your first life. Isabella was planning to frame you for the whole operation. The suicide wasn't your choice, Katherine. She'd been slowly poisoning you with experimental drugs to make you unstable. I felt sick. She killed me? In every timeline, she finds a way. Sometimes it looks like suicide, sometimes an accident, sometimes an overdose. But you always die within 2 years of this date, and always after she's secured her position. The cafe suddenly felt too small, too warm. I gripped the edge of the table. How do I stop her? That's what I've been trying to figure out. Alexander ran a hand through his hair, the first sign of vulnerability I'd seen. Every time I try to expose her directly, she turns the tables. She's incredibly smart, Katherine, smarter than anyone gives her credit for. What happened in the other timelines? Timeline 2. I tried to warn you immediately. You confronted her. She claimed I was lying to steal Daniel from both of you, and somehow convinced everyone I was stalking your family. You died in a car accident 3 weeks later. My blood ran cold. Timeline 3. I gathered evidence first, then approached the police. Isabella had already planted drugs in your apartment and evidence of embezzlement at your job. You were arrested and died in jail before trial. Timeline 4. I tried to work with Daniel, thinking he might have some conscience left. He took my evidence straight to Isabella. You died of an apparent heart attack the next day. I felt trapped, hopeless. So what makes you think this time will be different? Alexander leaned back, and for the first time, he smiled. It transformed his entire face, making him look younger, less burdened. Because this is the first time you've retained your memories, too. I'm not trying to convince a naive Katherine who trusts her sister. I'm working with someone who already knows the truth. Hope flickered in my chest. So we're partners? If you'll have me. He extended his hand across the table. But I need to warn you. Getting close to me puts you in more danger. Isabella becomes jealous, more desperate. In Timeline 6, she tried to have us both killed when she realized we were working together. I took his hand, feeling the strength in his grip, the calluses that spoke of hard work despite his wealth. What's our plan? We need to be smarter than her. We can't just defend against her moves. We need to anticipate them and turn them against her. Alexander's eyes gleamed with determination. First, we document everything. Every conversation, every interaction. Second, we set our own traps. What kind of traps? Tonight's dinner, for instance. You're going to let her make her first move against Daniel, but you're going to record it. Then, instead of confronting them, you're going to play the heartbroken victim, but only in public. Privately, we'll be gathering evidence of the medical trials. I nodded slowly. Make her think she's winning while we build our case. Exactly. But Katherine, his expression grew serious. I need you to understand something. Isabella isn't just greedy or jealous. She's genuinely dangerous. She's killed before and she'll kill again. The drugs she's been giving your father's test subjects, some of them were children. The horror of it crashed over me. My sister, the woman who used to braid my hair and tell me bedtime stories, was a monster. How did you find all this out? My sister Emily was investigating the trials when she died. She'd infiltrated your father's company as a temp worker and was gathering evidence. Isabella discovered her and... His voice broke slightly. They made it look like Emily had mental health issues and jumped from a building. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate. Emily's death is what triggered my loop. I think she's somehow connected to this. making sure I keep trying until we get justice for everyone Isabella has hurt. I squeezed his hand. We'll get justice. For Emily, for all those victims, and for us. There's something else. Alexander hesitated. In the later timelines, when we worked together more closely, we grew close. Very close. I need you to know that my feelings for you are real, but I understand if you can't trust them given the circumstances. My heart skipped. Even in my first life, there had been something about Alexander that had seemed familiar, comfortable. One crisis at a time, I said softly. But thank you for being honest. He nodded, pulling his hand back to show me more documents on the tablet. Your dinner tonight with Isabella and Daniel is at 7. Isabella will suggest wine. Don't drink it. She'll spike it with a mild hallucinogen to make you emotional and unstable. How could you possibly know that? Because I've watched this dinner 6 times. His smile was grim. She always uses the same tactics. The key is to let her think they're working while secretly recording everything. He slid a small device across the table. Audio recorder. The battery lasts 12 hours and it's undetectable. Keep it with you always. I pocketed the device. What about Daniel? Do I confront him? Not yet. Let him think he's in control. Men like Daniel are most dangerous when they feel cornered. We need to be patient. And my father? Alexander's expression darkened. Your father is the biggest monster of all, but we'll deal with him last. First, we neutralize Isabella's immediate threats, then we work our way up the chain. I checked my phone. It was already 4 o'clock. I should get ready for tonight. Katherine. Alexander caught my arm as I started to stand. Remember, you're not alone this time. Whatever happens tonight, I'll be watching. If things go wrong, if she deviates from her usual script, call me immediately. I nodded, but as I walked away from the cafe, I couldn't shake the feeling that tonight would be different. Isabella might be predictable in her tactics, but she was also smart enough to sense when something had changed. And if she suspected I knew the truth, she might accelerate her timeline. As I drove home to prepare for the most important performance of my life, I wondered if Alexander was right to be optimistic. 7 timelines, and we'd never succeeded before. But then again, we'd never been partners before. Tonight, the real game would begin. I stood outside Daniel's apartment at exactly 7 o'clock, my hand hovering over the doorbell. The audio recorder Alexander had given me felt like a burning coal in my purse. In my first life, I'd arrived at this dinner excited and grateful. Now, knowing what lay ahead, my stomach churned with a mixture of dread and anticipation. The door swung open before I could ring. Isabella stood there, radiant in a cream-colored dress that hugged her curves perfectly. Her smile was warm, welcoming, the same smile that had fooled me for 23 years. Katherine, you look beautiful. She pulled me into a hug, and I forced myself not to stiffen. Her perfume was different, more expensive than what she usually wore. Alexander's money, no doubt. Thank you for cooking tonight, I said, matching her enthusiasm. I've been looking forward to this all day. Anything for my big sister. Isabella's eyes sparkled with what I now recognized as malicious glee. Daniel's opening wine in the kitchen. Come on. The apartment looked exactly as I remembered. Modern, minimalist, expensive. Daniel emerged from the kitchen carrying a bottle of red wine and 3 glasses. He was as handsome as ever, with his sandy hair and easy smile. But now I could see the weakness around his eyes, the greed in his expression when he looked at Isabella. There's my brilliant fiancé. He kissed my cheek, and I fought the urge to pull away. Isabella's been telling me about her new photography project. It sounds fascinating. I settled onto the couch, accepting the glass of wine Daniel offered. The burgundy liquid looked innocent enough, but I remembered Alexander's warning about the hallucinogen. Oh? What kind of project? Isabella perched on the arm of Daniel's chair, her hand resting possessively on his shoulder. I'm documenting the effects of experimental treatments on patients. It's for a medical journal. The casual way she said it made my blood run cold. She was talking about the illegal trials, the victims, and she was bragging about it. That sounds important, I said carefully. Where are you finding these patients? Oh, through various connections. Isabella's smile sharpened. Sometimes people are desperate enough to try anything, even if it's risky. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should talk about something else. Catherine's had a long day. Of course. Isabella hopped up. Let me check on dinner.
The moment she disappeared into the kitchen, Daniel moved to sit beside me on the couch. Katherine, I need to tell you something. This was it. The moment that had shattered my world in my first life. I gripped my wine glass tighter, making sure not to drink from it. What is it? I kept my voice light, innocent. I've been thinking about us, about our future. Daniel ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I'd once found endearing. I love you, but I'm starting to wonder if we're rushing into marriage. I let my face crumble just slightly. What do you mean? Maybe we should postpone the engagement party. Take some time to really think about what we want. From the kitchen came the sound of Isabella listening at the doorway. She was getting off on this, watching my world fall apart. Daniel, I don't understand. I let my voice crack. Did I do something wrong? No, of course not. He reached for my hand, and I noticed how his palm was sweaty. You're perfect, Katherine. Maybe that's the problem. I don't understand what that means. Isabella appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of concern. Is everything okay? Katherine, you look upset. Daniel thinks we should postpone our engagement. I made my voice small, broken. Isabella sat on my other side, rubbing my back soothingly. Oh, honey, maybe he just needs some space to think clearly. The recorder in my purse was capturing every word, every manipulation. I do need space, Daniel said, relief evident in his voice that Isabella was handling this for him. Maybe we should take a break. See other people. Other people? I let tears gather in my eyes. Daniel, we've been planning our life together. Plans change, Isabella said gently. Sometimes the universe has different ideas for us. I wanted to scream at her hypocrisy, but instead I took a shaky breath. Is there someone else? Daniel and Isabella exchanged a look. Quick, but I caught it. Not exactly, Daniel said, but I've been talking to Isabella about my feelings, and she helped me realize that maybe I've been settling. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. In my first life, I'd believed they were tortured by their unexpected feelings. Now, I could see the cold calculation behind every word. Settling? I whispered. Katherine, you deserve someone who's completely sure about you, Isabella said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Someone who doesn't have doubts. I stood up abruptly, setting down my untouched wine glass. I need some air. Katherine, wait! Daniel started to rise, but Isabella put a hand on his arm. Let her process this, she murmured. She needs time. I walked to the balcony, sliding the door open and stepping into the cool evening air. Behind me, I could hear them whispering urgently. I pulled out my phone and texted Alexander. Phase 1 complete. They took the bait. His response came immediately. Are you okay? Playing my part perfectly, I typed back, moving to phase 2. I waited a few more minutes, then walked back inside. Isabella and Daniel were sitting closer together on the couch now, her head on his shoulder. They sprang apart when they saw me. I'm sorry, I said, making my voice stronger. You're right, Daniel. If you're having doubts, we should listen to them. Relief flooded his face. Really? You're not angry? I'm hurt, I admitted. But I want you to be happy. Both of you deserve that. Isabella's eyes narrowed slightly. This wasn't the complete breakdown she'd been expecting. You're being very mature about this, she said carefully. What choice do I have? I shrugged. If you don't want to marry me, Daniel, I can't force you. I do want to... it's not that simple. It is that simple. I picked up my purse. I should go, give you both space to figure things out. I was almost to the door when Isabella called out, Katherine, wait. Why don't you stay for dinner? We can talk more. She was panicking. The script wasn't going according to plan. In my first life, I'd been sobbing, begging, making a scene. This calm acceptance was throwing her off. I'm not really hungry anymore, I said, but thank you for cooking. Katherine, Daniel stood up. I hope we can still be friends. The audacity of it almost broke my facade. Of course, I managed. We'll figure it out. As I walked to my car, I could see them through the window, having an animated discussion. Isabella was gesturing wildly, clearly frustrated that I hadn't reacted the way she'd planned. My phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. Dinner at my place? We need to plan our next move. I smiled for the first time all evening. On my way. As I drove through the darkening streets, I felt a strange sense of freedom. In my first life, this night had been the beginning of my destruction. Now, it was just the opening move in a much larger game. Isabella thought she was winning, but she had no idea that she'd just walked into a trap 2 years in the making. The real performance was just beginning. Alexander's penthouse overlooked the city like a throne room. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed glittering lights stretching to the horizon, but all I could focus on was the man standing at the kitchen island, preparing dinner with the same precision he applied to everything else. You were magnificent tonight, he said without looking up from the vegetables he was chopping. Isabella looked genuinely rattled when you left. I sank into the leather couch, exhaustion hitting me now that the performance was over. She expected me to fall apart. When I didn't, it threw off her entire timeline. Good. We need her off balance. Alexander carried 2 plates to the dining table. But she'll adapt quickly. Isabella always does. Over dinner, perfectly seasoned salmon that somehow tasted like hope. Alexander and I listened to the recording from tonight. Hearing Isabella's manipulations played back was like watching a surgeon dissect a patient. Every word had been chosen for maximum damage. Listen to this part again. Alexander rewound to Isabella's comment about experimental treatments. She's not even trying to hide it anymore. She thinks you're too broken to be a threat. That's her mistake. I set down my fork, appetite gone. What's our next move? Alexander's expression grew serious. Tomorrow morning, Isabella will panic. She'll realize you didn't react the way you did in the other timelines, and she'll suspect something has changed. Her first instinct will be to accelerate everything. Meaning, she'll try to eliminate you within 48 hours. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. How? In Timeline 3, when you stayed calm after the dinner, she staged a break-in at your apartment the next night, made it look like a robbery gone wrong. Alexander reached across the table, covering my hand with his. That's why you're staying here tonight, and tomorrow we set the final trap. His touch sent warmth up my arm, and I realized that somewhere between this morning's desperation and tonight's triumph, something had shifted between us. The careful alliance was becoming something deeper. Alexander, I started, but he shook his head. I know what you're going to say. The circumstances are impossible. You're vulnerable. I'm your only ally. It's not real. His thumb traced across my knuckles. But I've loved you across 7 timelines, Katherine. I've watched you die 6 times, and each death nearly destroyed me. What I feel isn't born from proximity or desperation. It's born from knowing exactly who you are when everything is stripped away. My heart hammered against my ribs. And who am I? You're the woman who chose kindness even when your world crumbled, who sacrificed everything for people who betrayed you, who faced death with dignity while they celebrated your downfall. His eyes blazed with intensity. You're the woman worth dying for, worth living for, worth fighting across time itself for. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Isabella's name flashed on the screen. Alexander nodded. Put it on speaker. Katherine? Isabella's voice was strained, higher pitched than usual. I'm so sorry about tonight. Daniel's being an idiot. It's okay, Bella. I understand. No, it's not okay. You're my sister, and I should have stopped him from hurting you. The concern in her voice would have fooled me completely in my first life. Can we meet tomorrow? Just the two of us? I want to make this right. Alexander mouthed. Say yes. Of course, I said. Where? The old pier where we used to go as kids. Noon? I'll be there. After hanging up, Alexander's face was grim. The pier. In timeline 4, that's where she pushed you off the dock. Made it look like you jumped. So, we'll be ready for her. We'll do more than that. Alexander stood, pacing to the window. Tomorrow, we end this. All of it. What do you mean? He turned back to me and I saw something dangerous in his expression. While Isabella's trying to kill you at the pier, I'll be raiding your father's lab with the FBI. I've spent 7 timelines gathering evidence, Katherine. I have everything we need to bring down the entire operation. The FBI will really listen to you. When you have documentation of 23 deaths from illegal medical trials, including the murder of a federal agent, my sister, they listen. Alexander's voice was steel. Your father, Isabella, Daniel, everyone involved will be arrested simultaneously. But what about the pier? If Isabella... She won't get the chance to hurt you, because she won't be alone. I stared at him. What? Alexander smiled, and it was predatory. Remember, I've lived this day 6 times. I know Isabella will bring backup, 2 hired thugs to make sure the job gets done. But what she doesn't know is that I've hired my own security team, former Navy SEALs who've been briefed on the entire situation. The scope of his planning took my breath away. You've thought of everything. I've had 7 lifetimes to perfect it. He sat beside me on the couch, close enough that I could smell his cologne. But, Katherine, there's something else. Something I haven't told you. My stomach clenched. What? The loop doesn't just reset when you die. It resets when I die too. In timeline 5, Isabella figured out I was working against her. She had me killed 3 hours before she killed you, Alexander. Which means tomorrow. If we succeed, this might be the last time I see you with all these memories intact. If the loop breaks, I'll wake up as the Alexander from this original timeline, the one who doesn't know you exist. The thought of losing him, of losing this connection we'd built across impossible circumstances, made my chest tight with panic. There has to be another way. Maybe. Or maybe the universe will finally let us both rest. He cupped my face in his hands. But if tomorrow is all we have, I don't want to waste it on fear. He kissed me then, soft and desperate and full of years of longing. I kissed him back, pouring all my gratitude and hope and terror into the connection between us. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Stay with me tonight, he whispered against my forehead. Let me hold you one more time before we face whatever comes next. I nodded, unable to speak around the emotion clogging my throat. Later, lying in Alexander's arms in his massive bedroom, I stared at the ceiling and tried to process everything. Tomorrow, either we would finally get justice for all of Isabella's victims, or we would die trying. Either way, the cycle would end. Alexander, I whispered into the darkness. Yes? If we succeed tomorrow, if the loop breaks and you forget all of this, will you still love me? His arms tightened around me. Katherine Wells, I fell in love with you in the original timeline before I even knew your name. I saw you at a charity gala, helping elderly guests to their seats while your sister posed for photos. You were kind without an audience, generous without recognition. that's when I knew I wanted to know you. But Isabella approached me first, yes, but it was always you I wanted. In every timeline, in every life, it will always be you. As dawn broke over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, I felt ready for whatever came next. Isabella had stolen my first life, but she wouldn't steal my second. Today, the predator would become the prey. Today, justice would finally be served. And if Alexander forgot me after today, then I would just have to make him fall in love with me all over again. After all, I'd learned from the best teacher possible, time itself. The game was about to end, and this time I was holding all the cards.